Governor, thank you so much for sitting down here with us today. Wisconsin's lovely this time of year. What the heck is going on out here?
Well, we're trying to balance our budget, and apparently a lot of folks, particularly a lot of folks from outside of Wisconsin, aren't necessarily pleased with it. But I think in the end, I went around the state last Tuesday going to manufacturing plants from one end of the state to the other, talking about what we're proposing in this budget repair bill. And I got to tell you, the factory workers I talk with, the middle class guys who in many cases are paying anywhere from 25 to 50% of the premium for their health care and who almost universally don't have a pension. What they do have is a 401k, and many of those have been suspended, at least in terms of the employer match, so they're the only ones putting it in. They look at what we're putting out there for these state and local employees, and they think it's a pretty good deal. We're asking for 5.8% contribution for pensions. That's better than most people in the state are paying. We're asking for 12.6% when it comes to health care. That's half the national average. What we're doing is trying to balance the budget and do it in a way not only for state government, but for local government, so that they can keep from laying people off at a time when we don't need anybody else laid off, public or private.
If you don't pass this legislation, how many union workers would you have to lay off?
From the state standpoint alone, through the end of this fiscal year, which is June 30th, the savings are $30 million. That would be the equivalent of 1,500 layoffs of state workers. If we don't do it in anticipation of the next biennial budget, where I, like just almost every other governor across the country, are cutting aids to schools and local governments and universities. In fact, in New York and in California, they're cutting billions of dollars from schools, from the colleges and the universities, as well as local governments, without any tools. Here, we're trying to give them, at the local level, the tools they need to balance those budgets. But if we don't do that in anticipation of the next budget, it's 5,500 state workers that would be laid off. It's anywhere from 5,000 to 6,000 local government employees that have to be laid off. That's 10,000 to 12,000 people in a time when we've got a 7.5% unemployment rate. We can't afford to have anybody laid off. I'm trying to save jobs.
People out there in the streets are saying two things they're putting on their signs is that you're attacking families and you're trying to break the union.
Well, for us, we're simply trying to balance the budget. And we're trying to do it the sanest, most logical, most responsible way possible. This is a bold political move, but it is a modest proposal in terms of what we're asking for from the workers of this state. And it applies to me, my cabinet, my staff, the legislature, as well as the workers you see out in the street. I think that's why, while there are thousands of people here now, the reality is there's 300 state and local government workers out there. Most of them are at work right now where we pay them to be. They're not here protesting because they're good professionals. They're trying to do the job, get their jobs done. For us, it is about families. It's about protecting Wisconsin taxpayers' families. These people here have every right to have their voices heard. We've been listening for the past week. But the counter is there's 5.5 million other people in this state. The majority of them are taxpayers who pay a whole lot more and whose families, whose working families, middle-class families are paying a whole lot more. They think it's only reasonable to balance our budget. We don't pile on higher taxes on them, but instead ask all of us to pay a portion of it.
Governor, you were just elected, and there's a lot of people out there seem very surprised. Have you done a 180, or did you campaign on balanced budget?
Unless someone's been asleep for the last couple of years, this should be a surprise to no one. As the county executive in Milwaukee County, I not only did this, I got elected doing it. I got reelected twice in a county that's never elected a Republican before, mainly because I told the truth, told people what the problem was, told people what I do to fix it, and I did it. It's exactly what I'm doing here. I told it all throughout the campaign. The unions were shocked. Again, it's kind of revisionist history because they put out flyer after flyer after flyer last fall telling their members, quoting things about collective bargaining, about mediation arbitration, about things from my campaign site and campaign clips along the way that said, don't vote for this guy, he's going to do this. So it's nothing new. Now, you don't have to agree with me on it, but the bottom line is I've told people what I was going to do. I told them in the transition. I told them in December when we were able to successfully fight off the employee contracts that they tried to ram through after the election, but before I was sworn in, with no intention with negotiating with me or the new legislature. All those things were done because they knew I'm a guy who keeps to his word. We made campaign promises, we're fulfilling them. It's about balancing the budget with modest, reasonable proposals. I think just about everybody else outside of government or outside of the people here I think are the right way to go.
There's a lot of people out there shouting solidarity. How are you doing on solidarity? You talked to any of the governors around the country?
Absolutely. Well, first off, I should say solidarity with 5.5 million taxpayers. A lot of people have skipped out of work to come here today. There's a lot of taxpayers, including a lot of public employed taxpayers who are back home at work, We have, up until this point, received 19,000 affirming emails telling us, hang in there, you're doing the right thing, stay the course. We're hearing that in the calls and the contacts. Clearly, I've been hearing it with my colleagues from, obviously, guys like Chris Christie, Mitch Daniels, Tim Pawlenty, Bob McDonald. You go down the line, people have been reaffirming what we're doing here because they understand what we've been saying. John Kasich, who's going through the same thing even these latest couple of days, we're all trying to balance our budgets and do it in a responsible way. We know the answer is not piling on higher taxes because that only cripple our state's economy, and we're trying to commiserate a little bit.
There's some kind of radical signs out there calling you Walker, Mubarak, this and that. Are you fearing for your safety at all? Or?
No, I mean, I think in the end, you know, even the other day when I came out of one of the stops going around the state, had a few folks that surrounded our squad car, banged on it, pounded on it, stood in the way a little bit. The troopers got a little upset. But in the end, I think those are the extreme. I think the vast majority of people here have been and will continue to be peaceful. They're obviously passionate, and I respect that. You know, it's interesting for people complaining, including these 14 Senate Democrats, all but one of whom 2 years ago voted for a budget adjustment bill under Jim Doyle that raised taxes by $1 billion. He introduced it on a Wednesday. They voted on a Thursday. Now suddenly they say they need to slow the process down. But the reality is we've had a lot of time for people to let their word be known. The Joint Finance Committee the other day took 17 hours of testimony. That's unprecedented. People have had time. The Joint Finance Committee listened to their concerns. We listened to the concerns that were raised. We said we're not going to undermine our ability to balance the budget, but by the same token, we did make reasonable adjustments to ensure that even local government workers have the same sorts of civil service type protections that we do at the state level.
And lastly, Governor, I was out there a little while ago, and a fella came up and suggested I do this, that, and this, and that, whatever. Turns out he was from California. Yeah. He was an organizer in California, and he had been flown out here for this. Is this a stand? There's a lot of out-of-state interest, and a lot of out-of-state organizing and money out on the streets out there.
I think it is going to backfire big time. I mean, in the end, when I talk to lawmakers, even those who were trying to get their hands around this to begin with, I think they realize that to balance our budget, we've got to do this, to balance our budget so that local governments have the ability to balance their budgets as well. We have to do this. This is what this is all about. This is the defining moment. This is what we're elected to do. Instead of being intimidated by the growing number of demonstrators out there, as they realize that these are folks being flown in from all across the country, that money's coming in from Washington, and that national political leaders are coming in trying to influence people in Wisconsin, I think that's going to backfire big time, not only with the legislature, I think the public's going to turn on that because in the end, we're an independent. You know, we like mavericks, we like independence, we like to be able to think for ourselves here in the state of Wisconsin. We don't want people telling us what to do from other parts of the country. And I think to the extent that the growing number of these folks are coming in from elsewhere, I think is a huge miscalculation by opponents of this bill.
14 folks of your legislation, 14 senators, I believe.
Yep.
Went to Illinois on a surprise vacation. Yeah. Do you think they're going to come back to work?
I certainly hope so, and I hope their constituents, even those who may have varying opinions as to what they think about our budget repair bill, will demand that these 14 individuals come back and do what they're paid to do. You know, those 300,000 people I talked about who are state and local government employees who aren't protesting here but who are doing what they're paid to do, doing their job back homes in their homes all across the state of Wisconsin, they're doing the right thing, and my hat's off to them. They're professionals. I appreciate it. I understand these are tough and passionate times, but that shouldn't let these 14 state senators off the hook. The bottom line is they're paid to do a job. I've been doing my job every day, not just talking about this, meeting with the building commissioner, meeting on education reform, talking to other governors, meeting with chancellors and others. They're paid to do a job. They're missing in action. They're failing to fulfill the most fundamental part of their responsibility. And the irony is, for all this talk about democracy, democracy is what happens when you debate things, when you are in the arena. Running away and hiding in another state is not the way to stand up courageously and take a stand. That's running away. That's letting the political elements from outside of the state control what happens in our state's capital. I think they're better than that, and I hope in the end their constituents let them know that they expect them to show up, do their job, debate the bill, offer amendments, offer all the alternative comments they want, but don't hide in another state to try and get away from this.
Well, if these senators keep hiding and they're in the state of Wisconsin, will you have to send state troopers to pick them up?
Well, in our case, per the request of the Senate leadership today, per their official rule process, They requested the State Patrol go out and seek the Senate Minority Leader. Contact was made. Now, really, the precedent is that a trooper, law enforcement, Capitol Police, someone of that nature goes out and makes that contact. We're certainly not going to go out and arrest people or have them arrested. Again, they don't work for me. They work for the people in their respective districts, which is why I hope more than anything we can do, people in their districts, let them know they expect them to do their job.
Governor, you have a great state. I wish you good luck and Godspeed, sir.
Thank you.